Myself, the members of the representatives of the Attorney General's office have taken a lot of criticism and scrutiny. But that scrutiny in many ways was misplaced, because there was not a day that people in this office didn't go to sleep thinking about this case, and it wasn't a day where the first thing on our minds is getting to the truth in this case. And obviously, again, the criminal law is not meant to respond to every sorrow and grief, and that is true here. But my heart breaks for the loss of Miss Taylor, and I've said that repeatedly. My mother, if something was to happen to me, would find it very hard. And I've seen that pain on Ms. Palmer's face. I've seen that pain in the community. And what our responsibility in the AG's office was to make sure that we uncovered every fact, that we utilized every resource that we could bring to bear to uncover the facts and the truth, and that's ultimately what we presented to the grand jury. On the question of what I'm going to do, I've talked to partners in the community about helping to be a constructive member of any conversations moving forward. I recognize in my remarks I mentioned the fact that we'll be establishing a task force in the coming days ahead to look at best practices for warrants. So there is a lot that I can do in this platform to help.
Okay, sir, this is Maria Sacchetti with the Washington Post. Just had a couple of quick questions, please.
I hear your voice. Okay.
Hi,
yes,
sorry, over here in the back. Just wanted to double check. Did the grand jury ever consider the charges of manslaughter, reckless homicide? And if not, could you please explain why? And do you anticipate any other charges in this case?
I apologize. Could you say that a little louder?
Sure.
I think I got...
Sure. Did the grand jury ever consider manslaughter or reckless homicide or those kinds of charges? And if not, please explain why. And do you anticipate any other charges, or is this it?
I won't get into the specifics again of the proceedings themselves are secret, but what I will say is that our team walked them through every homicide offense and also presented all of the information that was available to the grand jury, and then the grand jury was ultimately the one that made the decision about indicting Detective Hankinson for wanton endangerment. I think that in terms of what happened the wee hours of March 13th, in terms of that particular or specific date, and what happened that night in the apartment, I think it is unlikely that there will be any additional prosecutions that come from that event itself.
Attorney General, so can you go into the confusion over the fatal shot that was fired, and kind of what the issue was there in terms of determining that? And then also, did you present to the grand jury with any charges against Mattingly and Cosgrove?
Well, so as to your first question, what I think you asked about was
confusion over the fatal shot.
Yes, the reports that were provided to us by the Kentucky State Police and then the FBI as it relates to ballistics. So initially we got the report from Kentucky State Police, and it was inconclusive about making a determination into that fatal shot. And so again, with the relationships that we have with our federal law enforcement community, and namely the FBI, I thought it imperative that we utilize that resource. And so they undertook an independent analysis and review of and conducted or provided a ballistics report. There is nothing that this team was able to glean suggesting that there was an objective reason for why FBI was able to conclusively or definitively state that Mr. Cosgrove fired the fatal shot. Both, again, KSP, their lab, well-regarded, well-respected, FBI, equally regarded and respected. That said, it certainly creates some issue in terms of providing that information to the grand jury and providing that at any subsequent prosecution. And so it was, from our judgment, important to provide both of those to the grand jury, and then ultimately let them make a determination about what to do with that information.
And were they presented with
Yes,
charges for Mattingly or Cosgrove?
I'm sorry?
Mattingly and Cosgrove.
Say
Were
that
they
again.
presented with any charges for Mattingly or Cosgrove?
Well, what I will say is that they were walked through all the homicide offenses, and with that information and the information and facts that were provided to them that we uncovered in our investigation, they made the determination that Detective Hankinson was the one that needed to be indicted here. Yes, ma'am.
General Cameron, just a couple questions. First of all, does Catholic doctrine apply at all in Kenneth Walker's defense of his home? Second question is, could you give me an idea of the percentage of people of color on the team of investigators presented to the grand jury?
So what I will say is there's obviously I don't want to get into the proceedings related to Mr. Walker. That's a separate, so I'm not going to have any comment on that. This team behind me presented to the grand jury. And your other question was about the racial makeup of?
Percentage of color of folks who are on the investigative team?
Well, I'm black, and I speak for the entire department. And I hope that will satisfy that question. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
I know that you said the investigation has obviously taken months and it was presented to the grand jury Monday. Can you tell us, when did the grand jury actually, how long did they deliberate? Did they begin on Monday or did they begin Tuesday? And that was of this week, correct?
The grand jury was presented with the information today. I won't get into the specifics of when they began their deliberations, but I will say that they started early Monday and concluded sometime before noon. And so they heard everything they needed to hear. We didn't withhold anything from them, and I hope that satisfies your question.
Okay. General, can you tell me a little bit more about this task force? You know, Senate President Stivers and Representative Scott are introducing warrant bills for the next legislative session. Are they going to be on this task force perchance, and will you be taking some of the information from the bills they pre-file to work with on this?
Well, I don't want to put, obviously, the cart before the horse, but I did mention in the remarks that we are certainly going to have elected leaders on this task force, and I imagine that some of the policy questions and some of the policy proposals that have already been put forward and have entered into the public conversation will be a part of this task force. But I want to make sure that people recognize that this task force is being established not to demonize any one side or any one department or agency. I think it's a healthy thing for the Attorney General from time to time to be a part of a conversation with all 120 counties. I'm not talking or singling out any county specifically, but with all 120 counties about best practices that can be utilized. I had a recent conversation with somebody that said there is always room for improvement. I think that's important in any industry, important in any job. And so as part of my role as the Attorney General, I certainly recognize the part I have to play in making sure that all of our systems in government are improved upon, whether it be because of a particular matter that occurred or because from time to time it's just the responsible thing to do.
Did
Yes,
any of the officers
I'm
ask?
sorry, Joe?
Yeah. Did any of the officers ask to testify or present evidence to the grand jury, and were any allowed to?
Well, what I'll say on that is, again, I don't want to get into the specifics, but testimony was heard by the grand jury of all sorts of witnesses and folks. And so, again, all relevant information was provided to the grand jury for them to make their...
Welcome, budding radicals and curious reactionaries. I am your host, Anthony Fama, and this is the show where we incite you to riot and push people's grandmas down in the street. What? No? Wrong show? All right, well, anyway, yeah, we're just going to keep giving you the same radical news that you're not getting from NSMB, whatever I don't watch because I got tired of that bullshit. Hey, look what we have here. It's a script. There's like words. There's words on here. There's a lot of pieces of paper. Like we're getting a little fancy here. So we're gonna see how well I can keep to a script today. That's gonna be a fun little adventure. So let's get this showboat on the road. Unemployment update. If you're unemployed, you know it's going to be a hobo-apocalypse! Oh my God, things are getting fucking stupid. All right, so yeah, it's getting worse. If you want to look, the New York Times just reported that there are already signs that the economic rebound is losing steam as some measures of consumer spending growth decelerate and job gains slow. Applications for jobless benefits rose last week with about 825,000 Americans filing for state unemployment benefits. It's getting worse and worse, and ain't nobody doing shit. You know? Like, nobody saw this was coming 4 months ago. Like, all right, the Democrats put the HEROES Act out there, but what, they doing anything with it? No. Like, they are going to go on break very soon, and October 12th is when they're going on break again. And guess what they're going to be distracted with? They are going to be distracted with getting Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You know, I think as Forbes notes, getting a stimulus package passed won't be easy, especially in the light of death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Senate Republicans announcing to vote on Trump's soon-to-be announced Supreme Court nominee. Some woman, evil woman, another evil woman. I don't pay Trump stuff. Which have heightened partisan tensions on the Hill. So, where are we going to get any of this unemployment? Like, they're not going to do anything on the Democrat side. Where they're already showing that they're going to cave. The House Democrats reportedly working on a new legislation with aid of around $2.4 trillion, roughly $1 trillion less than the HEROES Act proposed in May. All right, where do you think that money's coming from? Do you think it's coming from the money that's going to the people up at the top? The big corporations that are getting more junk bonds and pork bailout? No, it's coming from us. Oh, CNET. Major point of contention in the debates. Democrats want a new bill to provide $600 per week on top of the Democrats, just like the CARES Act did in March. But Republicans want to slim the figure to $300 like they have already. The problem solvers, the great problem solvers in Congress, those conservative Democrats and Republicans that can get together and get it done, because that's what they do. They get it done for themselves while we get shit. They put their proposal at $450 for 8 weeks with an increase afterwards. The new House bill is said to include unemployment benefits, but we don't know how much yet. So they're not going to do the HEROES Act. They're not going to stick to the one good thing they were going to do for us. And now they have an undisclosed unemployment help in that bill. So, yeah. we're pretty fucked. And Democrats aren't going to do anything. They're already dropping the ball on the Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yeah, like they've already taken so many possibilities off the table. So, yeah, they're toothless. They're not going to do anything. And we're all going to suffer and fry. And you're just going to run and vote for Biden because that's just what you got to do. So, do it, fine. Trump, bad. But you got to start getting prepared to, like, get out in the streets and, like, march for your rights and be annoying and block traffic. Which brings us to the entertainment workers update. There were 2 marches this week. Marches in quotations, for sure. The first march I did not go to. I promoted it. We talked about it last week. I'm not even going to put the graphic up. Yeah, from what I heard, it was just lame. And it was good that I didn't go. I mean, first, like, I think we discussed this last week, but they pushed cases from the Marquee Theater to fucking Tempe Town Lake on a Tuesday. Like, there's nobody there on a Tuesday to see any of that. Like, what attention are you gonna get? Hey, we pushed cases down a hard, difficult, empty road. And we went to an empty park. Yay. So, like, my only purpose in going there could be, agitating. And, not agitating and like, you guys are assholes and murder, let's go beat up cops. But, organizing. Getting like, hey, you guys know this ain't doing fucking shit for us. Like, we got to do more. We got to do more than this, like, corporate bullshit, getting permission from the city and having to obey these tight fucking rules to have our first and second, no, not second. We're not carrying guns to this stuff. I'm not great. I don't remember the Constitution much anymore because I have way more working class problems to deal with. Yeah, our fourth assembly the fourth is the right to assembly. So like it was very much not a protest, and this guy came and wanted to protest to open things up. Fucking get Ducey, fuck Ducey, open up like Florida. So yeah, me like going and having to contend with that guy would have been just like a waste of everybody's energy. So yeah, it was good that I just stayed home, let them have their day. But the march I did go to was the Union March, the Yahtzee 336 local march. If you go to my personal page, you can see the full live stream. There are a lot of really good speakers. I'm going to keep that up, actually. We're going to keep some Union up there. If Gren, you want to throw the link in the chat for Yahtzee 336 on Facebook. They've got a Facebook page. They've got another event coming up this Wednesday in Tucson. I'm looking for a ride, so if anyone can give me a ride to Tucson and wants to go march for entertainment rights, this was a much better march. They probably gave the city a heads up because they were really chill about it, but we definitely just went, and I don't know though, there were times we blocked traffic and then there were times we didn't, and it depended whether or not there was like actually the cops were there. And they blocked traffic for us. They told us afterwards this was the most organized protest ever, and next time you do this, like, just let us know. Yeah, they did that, so we didn't let them know. We just did it. They just said, like, just let us know, and, we'll block the streets for you, which I think defeats the purpose. So we pushed the cases from... I don't remember which venue because I walked and it's COVID house cat time. We marched to 3 different venues and then to to City Hall, and then from there, union leaders from YATSE or IATSE is what they call it. I like saying Yahtzee. We should call it Yahtzee. Who do you belong with? Yahtzee. But I mostly also just say Yahtzee when I orgasm, but that's just me. Unions. Oh, so they had IATSE union leaders giving some speeches about what we want, and then some AFL-CIO union leaders from Arizona, and then Danny Zalisco gave a speech that was pretty cool, but it was a step in the right direction. They definitely did the right things of how you organize, a march, and it's about going from a place to a place and then having speeches about what you're suffering and then what you actually need. But you can also tell how fucking rusty the union is at doing anything like this. Bless their hearts. I really want to go to the Tucson March. They're having another march here in Phoenix in 3 weeks. So whatever I can do to help organize them with that, I'm jumping in with. Yeah, they just didn't understand protest chants and rhythm. They were trying to get a chant going of "Who are we? Entertainment workers." No, this isn't a corporate, it's got to be "Who are we? Organized labor! Who are we? Organized labor!" It's got to be a cheer chant. Cheerleader, rah, rah, rah bullshit. And they had the piddliest, little, bullhorns. I really was just, I should have brought my own, because I at least have, a good, not a good, it's a pile. It's a pile, and that's the brand name. That's not a euphemism. But it's at least a 40-watt, chunky boy. But I have a boomy voice, so when we were pushing cases, when you watch the video, you'll see that it's just kind of low energy. Everyone's just silently pushing cases, and we were just kind of mostly fuck man, pushing a fucking case down the street has been the highlight of my 6 months. This feels good. Pushing a case, I was filming, so I didn't do the long push, but I helped, after my camera died, I helped push things into the truck. And they were double stacking cases manually, and for a second I got excited. I was like, ooh, I want to fucking double stack a case. And then I remembered this is a union gig, and that wasn't on my contract, so I just, kind of kept pushing another case. Yeah, no, they were trying to get a chant going halfway through of what do we want? A plan! When do we want it? Now! Which was a good one. I'm like, okay, that one's okay. That's decent. It's straight to the point. It's got the right syllables. Yeah, they just couldn't project it. And yeah, I just used my big boomy voice. And you'll hear that in the video. There were some things in the speeches that were a little disconcerting from my perspective and my viewpoint of where we are in COVID. Their big emphasis was us getting back to work, which... yeah, fuck yeah, we all want to get back to work, but, when it's actually safe, and it is safe, not that we can do it safe. It was that emphasis of we can do it, we're the professionals. There's cities opening up and proving that they can do it, and they're using Indianapolis and Orlando, Florida And if you're actually paying attention, oh my God, things are not going fucking well there. So that was a little, and then fucking like Danny Zalisco, bless his heart, like he was there and he like really like identified our needs and like put focus on us, which was really good. But he had this seeming fascination with coming up with a quick COVID test that you could just give people and like, you got COVID, go home. And that's like, if you've ever seen the first episode of Sliders, like that was very like, there was like these tests for the sick people in this alternate universe. And it was like very much like, no, us comfortable people don't want to have to deal with sick people, which is really the brunt of the rhetorical weight of the anti-mask argument. You know, like the healthy people, like, I'm healthy, why should I have to wear a mask? Because you don't know if you're actually healthy, because it takes 2 weeks to incubate. That's why it's a super spreader. But, you know, things aside, it was a step in the right direction. You know, they're demanding the Restart Act, which is like, no, a continuation of the CARES Act, fucking straight, no timeline, and like no dicking around on us. Like, you need to keep the base end consumer economy going. And that's all of us working people that keep getting fired, as we discussed just a few minutes ago. So, yeah, check out, if Gren put the Yahtzee link in the comments, check that out. They should be announcing more marches in Tucson and in Phoenix. So, protest. This weekend protest. Holy fucking shit. Things went down. So the early week was pretty calm. And that's saying something. Pretty calm, you know, conditionally, respectively. But yeah, then the Breonna Taylor indictment, which we'll talk about soon. Yeah, that kind of fucked things up. So, fucking Louisville, they basically declared martial law. I'm working on a process on how to like really like keep track of all these clips to get like some kind of like cohesive narrative of each day, because it's so hard to keep track of. Like, I think we just need a team of like protest reporters to just pick a city and just timestamp feeds and like, all right, here's the clips we got to get of like the things that happened and what people need to know, because it's getting fucking brutal. I accidentally lost all the clips I brought up on the Lappy Top. But yeah. So Wednesday in Louisville wasn't terrible. Like, Louisville was actually like, there were moments, but it wasn't like widespread. It wasn't what you were expecting. It wasn't wanton violence. The cops and the military were pretty like well aware. I mean, they were definitely still aggressive with munitions and batons and pushing people back. But it wasn't like anything like Seattle police running over someone's head and neck while they were just laying in the road. I don't know if you've seen that clip. But it was Thursday that really, in Louisiana, really kind of took the cake, because so Breonna Taylor's family joined a march, and they were really good, and everyone in the march, and it was, I'm gonna say, minimum 500 strong. And they all agreed, like, we're not gonna we're gonna just do what the cops tell us. We're gonna disperse as they tell us. When we need to get on the sidewalk, we'll get on the sidewalk. This is what Breonna's family wants. And they're marching, and then they turn a corner and they hit a police line, and without any warning whatsoever, the police just fire off flashbangs into this crowd of elderly people, children, Breonna Taylor's family, out of fucking nowhere, and then essentially like long kettle, like where like they're like kettling you from like basically a radius of a block and a half, and you can tell that there's nowhere to fucking go, but they're telling you to go that way, and you're like, well, I'm going that way, but there's a shit ton of fucking cops that way, and I don't want to go there. So yeah, but you have to do what they're telling you anyway, because otherwise, if you're not moving fast enough, you get the stick. So yeah, after that happened, and a pretty long standoff with the police, the family left, and then the organizers kind of asked the reporters to leave for a second so they can talk about some stuff that we're not going to talk about. Because this is a parody show, and we're not going to get kicked off of platforms for giving you the real news. But eventually we'll give you some feed to Anarcho Twitter, where you can get the real deal on that. Friday, also pretty quiet, excepting someone in Portland threw a cocktail behind police lines and lit a boot on fire. Oh, drop the cam. Oh. This is why you locked down. Oh, it lost power. Hold on, people. We're going to take a short break. All right. I think we're good. We will see. Hopefully the delay isn't too bad because we had to switch out cameras because of a power issue. But happy kitty, always there for the win. So yeah, conveniently camera breaking down when the protesters get a cocktail behind the fire of the police line. They got a boot on fire. Man, were the cops pissed at fucking that. So you know what they did? Saturday, after being deputized by the governor as federal officers, they did fuck all at the Proud Boys rally, which thankfully was much smaller than advertised. But yeah, they just let them beat up photographers willy-nilly. And then waited for the Black Lives Matter, the BLM protesters, to have their day later that night and just beat the fuck out of people. Oh boy. Oh, just like, you guys don't know what's coming for you when you finally need to stand up for your own rights. Like, you don't got time to vote this out like over 12 years, which is what your plan takes realistically at its fastest pace. Your incremental change. You know, at a certain point, it can't just be about changing policies like and banning chokeholds and banning no-knock warrants. You know, it's the fundamental nature of these institutions are broken. Absolutely broken because their intention was keeping us peasants in line. It wasn't to keep us safe. It was to keep us working shitty jobs. And we were living in shitty ghettos. But yeah. It's gonna be all right. We're gonna get Joe Biden, and cops are just gonna shoot people in the kneecaps, and it's gonna be okay. It was okay during Obama. It's not like any of this stuff didn't happen during Obama. Oh, I should have really brought up the drug raid videos. Well, now that we don't have to figure out a problem, and we're going to take our scheduled break, and we're going to take a little bit of shorter of a break, but then we will come right back with our mainline topic, why Breonna Taylor cannot get any kind of justice under liberal capitalism. It's just not going to happen. It's just not how the thing works. So, going to take a very short break, and then we'll be right back with more disappointing news. All right, budding radicals, we are back and ready to disappoint everyone on what's going to happen in the future because, yeah, we keep giving you bad news you don't like and you just don't listen. So we're just going to keep giving it to you. Yeah, the ruling came out on Wednesday, and for once I tried to be optimistic about it and put a positive spin. And everyone came down on me that it, like, how could you? Like, this is the most terrible thing. Yeah, it's fucking bunk. You know, that people's houses get raided like this, and innocent people get murdered, and nothing happens. But legally, this is fucking regular. Like, this is just how it works. This is drug raid, you know? That's how drug raids work. Gren's gonna put some very fun videos in the comments for you on actual drug raids over the last 4 years, and this goes back to Obama too. You know, if you think these policies were any different 8 years ago, they weren't. It's been one long progression from each president of extending and expanding these policies. Now, there's a lot of legal problems with the indictment. I mean, not legal problems. There's moral problems. Because we want justice for Breonna Taylor, and we didn't get it. But, and this is, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal expert in any sense, I'm just a fucking idiot guy that studied a whole bunch of radical theory in his college years, and then just kept reading stuff. But legally, all this is sound. It's the best ruling that could happen. Now, in our sense of retributive justice, the way our legal system's set up, this wasn't a case where it was a police interaction killing. You know, they didn't have any time to make a decision on Breonna Taylor. They were following the policy of a drug raid and bursting into a house, and when there's gunfire, you light the place the fuck up. Because they're drug dealers. Fuck them. No one cares about these trash. So prosecuting the person who actually shot the fatal blow on Breonna is a finicky situation because he was literally just following policy. You know, had they known that they were at the wrong place, it might be a thing. But, yeah, again, this was a pretty standard drug raid. Other than the botched warrant. And this, like I mentioned earlier, goes way back to fucking Tricky Dick. Look at that creepy motherfucker. Look at him. So we all know this is when the drug war started, and we all know that Nixon was a racist and an authoritarian. There is the Ehrlich quote. Should I do my Nixon voice?
Yes, absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying? No, that's too much. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we just couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate with the hippies and marijuana, and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing them both heavily. This is a bad Nixon. I should have practiced this line more. I didn't practice this at all. It's okay. It's an okay Nixon. Criminalizing them both heavily, we could disrupt both those communities. It's the Futurama Nixon. You just shake your jowls and breathe heavily. But, So there is some controversy with this quote. So Nixon didn't actually say that. I did the Nixon voice, but that's John Ehrlich, one of Nixon's cabinet, who stated that to a reporter much later, who reported it much later than it was initially found to be, or reported to him. But again, we know Nixon's. So the controversy is that his family, is that this is against John's character. Like, he wouldn't believe anything like this. But it's not about John. It's about Nixon. We know Nixon was racist, and Nixon hated the anti-war people who were all leftists. All the major disruptors of the war movement were the radical left. So, yeah, using the drug war to disrupt all of the disruptive communities of their political plan, which was they weren't neoliberals. They were Keynesian, the good quasi-social democrats of capitalism, when government was good. And Nixon's policies weren't too far off from Obama. So from all of that history of the drug war, which you have, creepy Joe Biden, huge part of that escalation of the drug war. So that's where we led. So the policies and procedures, when you watch these videos in the comments, are fucking ridiculous, but fully legal. This was the best way we could get any kind of legal ramifications. And again, as far as we know, everything was carried out legally. As far as the drug raid, outside of the warrant being completely wrong. So Vice has reported they just released some body cam footage. The footage from the raid itself has been released, and for months, LMPD has insisted that none exists, saying that officers in this unit often operate in plainclothes and were not required to wear body cameras. So yeah, for months, the police are saying, like, no, we have no footage of the raid itself. No, we got plenty of footage. So what Vice just released was the body cam footage of the investigation immediately thereafter, which proves why the one guy who was fired was actually indicted, and he was indicted because the easiest thing for him to be indicted on was shooting at the wall, when he was actually at the post-investigation fucking around with things. And there's video of him just wandering around a crime scene where the crime scene investigators are like, you have to get the fuck out of here. Get out. It's still hot here. Get out. Go. But in that footage, Vice shows that photographs of officers taken from that night clearly show Tony James, one of the at least seven officers present for the raid, wearing a body camera on his right shoulder. So there are doubts, but let's assume, by what we know currently, that standard policy was followed in the execution of the warrant and the raid. Then the cops didn't do anything wrong because they just acted on bad intelligence, like not knowing this cop from Dick. I'm sure he does have like a history of fuckery, but putting him away for actually doing his job, quote unquote, correctly, as far as we know, would be a breaking of justice. He shouldn't be punished for doing his job correctly, but being given wrong intelligence. From a legal, I don't agree with this morally in any way. Anarchist, different sense of law, which we're going to talk about soon. Not the anarchist view, just the law in general. Yeah, we're going to do a video on anarcho-justice, and but not going to get off on that tangent. So, you know, is it the person who gathered the intelligence that murdered Breonna Taylor? Is it the person who signed the warrant? You know, those are fucking devil may ask questions, right? Like, those are inconvenient parts of this equation, which, not to defend the ruling on any kind of moral standing, but the way our legal system is set up, that's how it's set up to work. That's what it's supposed to do. That's the kind of justice it delivers. So what kind of justice? Because this is like retributive justice is what our system is mostly set up on. It's going back to Hammurabi's code. You know, an eye for an eye, a leg for a leg, a life for a life. What's taken from one should be taken from the other. You know, it's basically our theories on punishment, you know, and how punishment deters people from committing more crime. And we definitely can't get retributive justice in this case. I mean, our legal system isn't designed to give that justice to someone like Breonna Taylor. It was designed to give them distributive justice. And distributive justice, Gren started going real deep on this. I was just going through Wikipedia and looking at the sources from there to make sure they're legit. But Gren really wanted to go scholarly. So distributive justice is fucking complex. All of these theories of justice are fucking complex. And we're just boiling them down to understand our legal system and Breonna Taylor. All right? So distributive justice refers to the extent to which society's institutions ensure that benefits and burdens are distributed equally among the people of society. And that happened. Breonna Taylor's family got $12 million, right? $12 million? Now, we just think that's bullshit because that's our money. That's not the cops. It's not the police union that has to pay that. It's not money coming out of their fucking tanks paying that. It's we're paying that. So we're paying her family $12 million, which is great, but that's not the kind of justice we want to see. You know, that doesn't make us feel good. It doesn't feel like it's going to stop this from happening again. You know, maybe, you know, they did pass Breonna's law in Louisville, just the city, right, I believe? Or maybe the state. You know, they can pass a little bit of reforms, but, like, people are still going to get killed accidentally in drug raids. Because they're brutal, swift, and imprecise actions. Because our intelligence services aren't that fucking good. They're not. Social justice. That's another type of justice that has a long storied history. And we're not going to get into that because the colloquial nature of colloquial nature of our modern language, that's for the long video. But to just really get through it, like, it's about the social relations. Social justice is how do we balance social relations to where this kind of thing doesn't happen, right? And obviously we're not going to get that because social justice is a much longer topic. It's a longer conversation that we all have to have, and it is systemic, but it's also very cultural. It's not organizational in nature. It can be, but we'll get to that in the long video. Then we have revolutionary justice, which we're not going to talk about because we want to stay on air. But that's not going to make us feel better. That's not going to make anything better in the long term. It's not going to help us get any long-term systemic change, which is really the crux of this. Is it's revolutionary change that we need. Defunding is good. Taking some of their money away as a form of retributive and distributive justice, it feels good, but it doesn't solve the problem that the nature of the police and our legal system is violent, imprecise, and meant mostly to keep the peasants in line. And the drug war is part of that. Joe Biden's son, his son can do all the fucking cocaine he wants and still fucking be the CEO of a shady energy corporation in the Ukraine. But anyone who's caught with crystal meth or any crack, just that whole, this stuff. The story, the history of the drug war and how completely and utterly full of shit it is. But you think you can change one little bit of this machine at a time. You just change out the brakes, maybe put some new suspension on it. But you just gotta get rid of the fucking machine. The car's dead. The car actually works fucking great. But it's a murder machine. It's built to keep a black market going. How many of you watched fucking Nucky McGee show? Nucky Thomas. Boardwalk Empire. How basically the government was like, hey, these grannies are making this big fuss about liquor. We could really use a black market right now. That could be like really in our favor. There's some people in the government really trying to put a stop to it, but most of them were still on the fucking grift. But they used it to quash a lot of organizing in these towns they wanted to control. And that's what's happening here in our communities. They're pumping them full of drugs, legal drugs, that Joe Biden's insurance buddies are making a lot of money off of. And he's just giving them a free pass. And that funnels to the legal system and the police enforcement of that legal system. Cops used to be friendly guys walking around the neighborhood, just kind of hassling black people. But now they're fucking G.I. Joes with big fucking tanks hassling black people, homeless people, poor white people, everybody who disagrees with anything they have to say or disobeys any erroneous order they give you. I can step out into the street a little bit. There's a car right there parked. I'm going to step in front of that parked car, and that's legal. You can't hit me with a stick, and you can't tell me when I can go home. I don't fucking care that curfew bullshit. So, yeah, it's if we want justice for Breonna, if we want justice for George Floyd, if we want justice for any of the people in our community here in Phoenix who've been murdered by police. I got a friend in high school. His name was Ollie. He was suicidal and he was in rehab. He got addicted to meth really early in this epidemic of crystal meth. And he was just from rehab. He had a relapse. His parents called for help because he was threatening to kill himself and he had a knife in his hand. The cops came into the kitchen and saw the knife. The kid made a move and they plugged him 15 times in the fucking chest. His parents, 20 feet away. I went to that fucking funeral and never have I seen a mother actually throw herself on a fucking grave. A casket going into the fucking dirt. Howling like a banshee, a mad banshee. It was unsettling. Like, it was too much to even cry. Like, you were just shocked and depressed and sad and empty. And this was like a kid. Like, I gave him a fucking hard time all the time. You know, we both bounced in between groups. But, you know, fuck, he didn't deserve that. His family didn't deserve that. None of these families deserve that. And, even just the distributive justice they get every now and then. But this is the best this indictment could have turned out. They rarely indict these people. We rarely get indictments. Hopefully it goes to court and something happens. Not only did we get a smidgen of an indictment, but they knew it was such bullshit that they had to shut the city down and bring in the big fucking tanks. I didn't mention that in the update, but because I thought it was assumed. But no, they had military gear out in Louisville. So, yeah, this is honestly the best it was ever going to be. The fact that they indicted anyone at all, and probably because this guy was interfering with the scene, which, the other guys didn't do much better following protocol from the report, but you just got to get out in the streets, because getting out in the streets is what got this. It took 4 months of sustained protest to get this smidgen of the system to bend. So we got to keep doing it. We got to keep pushing them to bend and showing more people that when we just try and get a little bit of justice, they hit us with sticks and shoot us with fucking pellets and fucking grenades. To be honest, they're fucking grenades. And when they hit you and then explode, it really fucking hurts. Paul Ann can attest to that. So let's action notes to leave the show off with. I don't think there's any protesting going on currently in Phoenix. I haven't seen any updates on the few channels that I have here in Phoenix. But Thursday, go to the Anti-Fascist on Gilbert and Warner in Gilbert, Arizona. Go stand on the corner with the Anti-Fascists, obviously. Wednesday in Tucson, the IATSE case push. Go tell your friends. Go wear show blacks. Help push a case down a road, and listen to some speeches from some union people about why unions are important. Go out for a hike. Talk about your feelings with your friends. You guys all need to start talking about your feelings more. First step to the revolution. Going out for a hike and talking about your feelings. So fill out your unemployment claims. We didn't talk about that in the update, but state funds are running out for a lot of people. You're going to have to reapply. It's going to have a wait week. It's going to be confusing. We'll post a link in the next week when I figure out how to have to do it. But we'll post a link to where you have to go to reapply on the page, on the Facebook page. Yeah, have a good week, guys. And we will see you next week.
We can't bust heads like we used to, but we have our ways. One trick is to tell them stories that don't go anywhere. Like the time I caught the ferry over to Shelbyville, I needed a new heel for my shoe. So I decided to go to Morganville, which is what they call Shelbyville in those days. So I tied an onion to my belt, which was the style at the time. Now, to take the ferry cost a nickel, and in those days, nickels had pictures of bumblebees on them. Give me 5 B's for a quarter, you'd say.